Welcome, and thank you for joining us today for our webinar on digital product passports, shaping the future of commerce. A few housekeeping items before we start. This webinar is being recorded, so you can rewatch or share with your team on demand in about 48 hours. Type any questions or comments into the chat bar. I believe that's on your right, but make sure you're not full screen so that you can actually see the section. And now we'll begin. Over the last decade, the rise of the internet brought fashion online. Now, the Internet of Things is bringing the online world into every garment. New legislation will soon require that products have a digital product passport or DPP under initiatives such as the US Digital Care Label and the EU's strategy for sustainable and circular textiles. These regulations will have a wide sweeping impact and change the way we buy, sell, own, and interact with products. We'll be diving into the details of DPPs today alongside our panelists, which include iconic fashion luxury house Coach, who has recently partnered with technology company EON to give Coachtopia products a digital product passport to drive greater transparency, support new sustainability goals, increase product value through new services, and unlock lifelong customer connections. We have a great panel today, and I'll give each of them 15 seconds to introduce themselves and their roles. Let's start with June.
Thank you, Jasmine. Hi, everyone. I'm June Silverstein. I'm the SVP of Global Marketing and Sustainability at Coach and the head of Coachtopia. And I'm excited to be here today with this incredible panel of women for this chat.
Wonderful. Natasha?
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Natasha Frank, founder and CEO of EON. Thank you.
And Julie.
Hi, everyone. My name is Julie Brown, and I lead sustainability at EON.
Everyone was like 2 seconds and not 15 seconds. So the connected products economy is something I've been covering for Sourcing Journal since digital IDs were still very conceptual and not widely adopted. Since this article mentioning EON was published in 2020, things have changed dramatically, and digital IDs are now on most major brands' roadmaps. I'll now hand it over to Natasha to share more on the drivers of this acceleration and what the future will look like when every garment is connected. Natasha, take it away.
Jasmine, thank you so much. I remember when you wrote this piece years ago, and it was, before its time, but now the moment is here, as you say. Incredibly excited to be here. As I just introduced myself, I'm Natasha. I'm founder and CEO of EON. We've started on our journey at EON about 7 years ago, building the technology platform that we use today with brands and retailers. And we started because we believe digital product passports are one of the biggest catalysts for sustainable commerce. So our goal today is to kind of give you just a little bit of an overview of the impact that DPPs will have and what you need to prepare for. Just as Jasmine said, much like the internet itself, this is the beginning of the Internet of Things. So these introduction of connected products and digital product passports are actually going to be redefining how customers buy, sell, own, and interact with the world around them, and ultimately reshape the competitive landscape in fashion and retail, just like the internet did in ways that we can't even imagine. Now, simultaneously, these digital product passports are also going to be critical for upcoming legislation. And it's incredible to see those two things work together, right? Digital product passports will be required by policy. And what is a digital product passport? A digital product passport is a digital twin of a physical product, right? A data profile in the cloud holding all the information about that product. It links the physical product connected with an NFC or QR or RFID that enables this unique product to be identified and tracked throughout its entire life cycle. So it can be identified with its materials through resale, through customer use and engagement, and even steward that product through resale and circularity. And so we've been really lucky at EON to have the opportunity to work with some of the most leading global brands and retailers on their digital product passport implementation, enabling them to make their physical products traceable, intelligent, and valuable, and lay the groundwork enterprise infrastructure for their DPP compliance. We've also been the first cloud platform to enable end-to-end product traceability, right? A product being uniquely ID'd, capturing all the material data and transparency, driving new capabilities and use cases. And you'll hear how June and the team at Coach has been leading that, driving some really amazing next generation use cases. And then of course, now delivering on new business models such as resale, repair, and regeneration to unlock that 360 traceability that the fashion industry has been looking for. And I think while sometimes this may seem like very futuristic and really far out there, this actually, when you really break it down, is quite obvious, right? Today, we ID products from point of production to point of sale in a quite rudimentary way because we believe they're assets. But then we remove the ID and we let them go out into the wild and we never see them again because we haven't viewed them as assets. But now there's a transition. Products will be required to be uniquely ID'd. They will be able to be traced. They will be able to drive continuous customer relationships. They will be able to drive repeat revenue and new business models and ongoing competitive intelligence and insights. And the adoption tipping point is now driven by policy, smartphones, new business models like resale. All of these factors coming together are driving brands to really have, no choice essentially with the legislation to implement DPPs. And what's incredibly exciting is this is more than compliance, right? This is actually going to be the future of how you engage with your customer. Once we start to know everything the user has, DPPs can actually allow the connection and the link between the customer ID and the product ID, allowing for hyper-personalization and service. And those brands who move into the customer's closet will be the ones that stay close to their users and service and drive transactions. And what guides us here at EON and why we believe this is the biggest leverage point to sustainable commerce is this is changing the business model, right? For so long in fashion, we've had a business model just based on volume. Now we could actually look at brands monetizing products through second and third lives, which will incentivize and build a new revenue stream for brands that isn't just based on volume. So this is incredibly powerful and brings together that 360 vision, and the opportunity that we see at EON is so impactful. And so in order to capitalize, yes, digital product passports require new technology. They require delivering on a holistic set of services from sustainability to circularity to measurement. And that's why we've been really lucky to build a CRM for products that allows brands to build those 360 capabilities, and been so privileged to partner with June and team. And I'm really excited, more excited than my own talking, to hear from June directly on her implementation and her vision. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Natasha. Hi, everyone. So I'll start by sharing a brief introduction to Coachtopia and then how we're using digital IDs. Coachtopia is a new sub-brand we launched just this past April after almost 2 years of incubation with the mission to pioneer circularity. It's both a discovery lab for circularity and a community-powered platform for change. And the digital passports we've implemented in every product in partnership with EON are a really critical enabler of the circular ecosystem. So I wanted to share a video which brings our vision to life through our Gen Z community of activists, designers, makers, and thinkers.
This is Coachtopia, our vision of a circular future.
It's a place where we turn waste
into opportunity.
Taking 80 years of Coach craft
to transform what already exists into beautiful materials.
Designing things not for just one life,
but for many lives.
That can be loved, passed on, remade, and reused.
As part of a growing community.
This is our Coachtopia. And we're building it together. Staying connected to every product.
so we can follow its journey as it lives multiple lives.
And whenever you decide to set your product free,
we'll take it back and reimagine it, repurposing even the tiniest scraps so it can live another life. We're glad you're here.
So the digital passport technology we've integrated is so exciting, not just because of what it unlocks in terms of our capabilities and knowledge, but also in terms of our connections with our customers. So here you see our digital product page of one of our most iconic Coachtopia bags, our ergo and upcrafted checkerboard leather. And I'll take you through 3 of the core reasons we've implemented digital passports. So first, data-driven transparency. As you saw in the video, every Coachtopia bag, wallet, footwear, and ready-to-wear item also comes with a unique digital passport accessed via an embedded NFC chip. And we've learned from you can go back one slide. We've learned from our Gen Z community that they want brands to be more open and honest about their sustainability efforts, to not only share intense but quantifiable impacts, and to bring them along on the journey. And each product's digital passport gives customers transparency into its materials, its made circular design, and environmental impacts, including its carbon footprint and waste diversion. Second, facilitating circular product journeys. In Coachtopia, one of our core circularity principles is to design each product for multiple lives so that it can be more easily repaired, disassembled, remade, recycled for second and even third life, and to scale these circular pathways so our products can stay in use and out of landfill. Digital passports are critical in that they provide the means to facilitate and follow each product's journey as it is loved, traded in, reloved, reimagined over multiple lives with multiple owners. And for our customers, this facilitates not only product care and repair services, but take back and resale, further enabling our circular systems. Third, community engagement. In Coachtopia, digital passports also enable a new type of relationship between brand, product, and consumer. Customers can connect their product's digital passport to their account and access a range of circular services that will help prolong the lifespan of their product. And this connection is possible regardless of where the customer buys the product. It also allows for new types of community connections. Our Gen Z consumers have shared their desire for a different type of fashion in a world obsessed with newness, one where products have a story enriched by their history, can be passed on and reused across a global community. These are the connections we are working to ignite. And then lastly, Coachtopia is a world in progress. Circularity is a journey, not an endpoint, and our mission is to keep driving progress towards this North Star. We are now expanding globally, along with this connected products technology as we launch in new markets. Singapore launched last month, Japan at the end of this month, Germany in November, and China next year. We're also working on new connected capabilities such as integrated resale and personalized experiences, and in the future, scaling this technology more broadly across Coach. So I'll now turn it over to Jasmine, who will lead our panel discussion.
Thank you, June, and thank you, Natasha. So Natasha, let's start with you. You explained what a digital ID is. Can you explain why this gives items a voice and why this is so important?
Yeah, I'd say that when in the fashion industry, when we make a product, there's so much more behind every product. There's so much embedded material story. There's so much design story. There's so many decisions that are made, and a lot of those data points are invisible to the customer, right? So the customer can't really tell when they look at a product whether it's made of a recyclable material or not. They don't know the inspiration behind the product, the design story, perhaps the history. And so now with Product ID, customers can actually engage with their product and learn exactly about this product, its life cycle, its design, and also they can have the instructions on how to carry that information forward. So I think, in terms of giving every product a voice, it makes the invisible visible. And that's quite beautiful. And I think we think of it, yes, it's going to help change the behavior, but it's also going to help change the relationship that people have with their products, right? When they know all of that information, it builds a different sort of user engagement with the brand.
Right. So much of the information is painstakingly gathered and then we just lose it, which is such a waste. So June, as a fashion brand, is there a point where data about a Coach or product just falls off the radar, as I mentioned? And is that something that's really frustrating to you?
Yes, absolutely. Today, as Natasha mentioned before in her introduction, in our existing systems, we produce products, we assign a batch number, where one style applies to thousands of units, and then we sell these products to our customers and they're out in the wild. We offer robust after-sales services such as lifetime leather care, repairs, take-back, and re-commerce, but still, in large part, we lose visibility to the rest of each product's journey. In a circular world and with Coachtopia, we are changing the paradigm of our responsibility as a brand. So regardless of who owns our products, we need to work to ensure they stay in use and out of landfill. And digital passports allow us to follow and facilitate each product's journey, tracking each moment in the life cycle of the product as it's used, sold, used, repaired, traded in, resold, reimagined. And so even as one product becomes remade or recycled into another, we can track those moments. And the visibility to those journeys of our products across multiple lives with multiple owners is so critical in being able to build these new circular business models.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, how and why is customer engagement beyond the point of sale so important? And how can digital passports really promote that connection?
Yeah, great question. And customer engagement beyond the point of sale is critical for all brands. And as a brand, our mission at the very broadest level is to meet consumer emotional needs and build long-term relationships, not just sell products. But in a circular world, this becomes even more important, as circularity just isn't possible without consumer participation and engagement. And digital passports helps with this because they facilitate the connections we have with our global community. Customers can connect each piece to their account, accessing a rich array of services and becoming part of a really deep conversation with the brand. Mm-hmm. And so we're continuing to explore new ways to leverage digital passports to engage both within and across our community. And I think there are so many possibilities. It's really quite exciting.
Yeah. And Julie, we're going to talk about the big L, legislation. Can you walk us through the EU's digital product passport legislation and what brands need to keep in mind?
Yes, definitely. So the EU's DPP legislation will change the way the industry works today and change the way that data exchange takes place along the value chain. This EU strategy for sustainable and circular textiles, released in March last year, calls for DPPs to be implemented mandatory on all textile products within this decade. And the strategy calls upon the Eco-Design for Sustainable Products Regulation, or ESPR, to define the general requirements. And the ESPR is expected to be adopted by the end of this year, early next year, with possible implementation in 2025, 2026. And at that point, delegated acts will start specifying the requirements for individual sectors. And so the delegated act for textiles is prioritized. And so that's expected to be presented in 2025 with DPP legislation and implementation requirements expected in late 2026, 2027. I just threw a lot of dates at you. I realize that late 2026, early 2027 is the big one. And there's a lot to do in preparation before that.
So time is passing super fast. I mean, it's already September and I feel like we just celebrated the new year. So this is going to come at brands faster than, they'll anticipate. How can they best start preparing for it?
Start collecting data now. A good place to start is traceability data. Traceability of your supply chain, understanding where things are coming from. That strategy needs to be in place now. And then start to move on to impact data. So all of this, and this is important for multiple legislations too. So it's not just, it's all going to be connected. And as soon as you can start getting that data in order, then you can really start to get prepared for compliance, but also prepare for circular business models and the other advantages that can come with DPPs.
Great. And Natasha, let's talk about what happens after a product is sold. How can brands use that digital ID to authenticate products for resale? And what are the implications for the brand if this isn't done?
Yeah, I'd say that one of the things that most people so EON's a stakeholder in the Surpass Consortium, which is looking at the DPP legislation. And what's really interesting there, and I think one of the things that most people don't realize about the DPP framework, is the item level ID and the data exchange throughout the circular value chain is critical and will be required by the DPP. So it requires that your product is uniquely ID'd, that it holds all the traceability information, and Jasmine, just as you described, that it shares and exchanges data throughout the circular value chain to drive those business models, as well as sharing that sustainability information forward to the customer. So what brands are kind of doing now to get ready is, one, we begin with a gap analysis where we do a little bit of discovery on, okay, what data do you have readily available today? And then what data will you need for your DPP? And then setting up that initial digital product passport is critical. And then you can enrich that DPP with the essential data as more and more requirements from the EU Commission become available. And then once you have that digital twin,
No, go ahead.
That digital twin set up, that product, then you can start to permission how that product connects to a resale partner, how that product connects to a repair partner, and you have that full end-to-end traceability that is required for your true digital product passport ecosystem.
Yeah, fantastic. And June, as you mentioned, Coachtopia is built on the sustainable and circular model. So how does what Natasha said jive with what you're trying to accomplish here?
Yeah, so Coachtopia was designed from the very outset for circularity, and we've developed a set of made circular principles which define what we mean by circularity. So these principles include, one, crafting with waste and materials that already exists in order to minimize the creation of virgin raw materials. Two, designing for multiple lives, meaning we craft products from the beginning to be more easily disassembled, repaired, and reimagined for second life. And three, creating scalable circular pathways, which includes our commitment to take back every Coachtopia product regardless of age and condition. And as I mentioned before, we've developed this environmental impact calculation tool, which measures the carbon footprint and waste diversion of each of our products. So digital passports allows us to convey this story to our customers on an individual product level. So providing transparency into each product's made circular design, materials, quantifiable impacts, to share our progress with our consumers. And this is something all of our Gen Z consumers repeatedly tell us they increasingly expect and demand from brands. It also allows us for a much richer storytelling behind products. In so many ways, we've become so disconnected from the people and processes behind the products. And, to tell more human storytelling around each of our products and the journey we're on together. And then I'm excited because, we're still in the early stages of Coachtopia. So we haven't had products coming back to us because consumers are still loving them in their first life. But, we will be, again, following the journey of our products. And you can imagine at some point when you buy a second life product, you can scan it and find out that your crossbody bag used to be a tote in its first life. So again, really rich storytelling as products live multiple lives with multiple owners.
And that's something Gen Z really craves, that story connection.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And Julie, how can DPPs help brands scale their sustainability ambitions, including things like repair, resale, and recycling?
Oh, absolutely. Well, today there are a lot of challenges with scaling some of those circular business models for a couple of reasons. And most of them has to do with data exchange. So as June suggested before too, the first challenge is facilitating consumers to those business models. So consumers aren't aware of what to do with their products when they're done with them. And so figuring out how to resell them or recycle them or what they should do with them is a huge challenge. And they need to be facilitated and stewarded toward the right solutions. And the DPP is a great facilitator of that. Then once it gets to that recycler, that reseller, that repairer, the circular business model partner, that partner needs data too, right? Right now they're working with very little data, if any, about a product once it's collected. And so it's difficult to list products accurately, to value them accurately, to list them. And so the DPP can transfer data that says, if you're a recycler, it will have the brand and the product name and the description, maybe even an original price. If you're a recycler, you need to have information about the material composition and chemicals and finishes, things that can really help optimize and scale that business just through simple data exchange. It's a way to really overcome some of the barriers that are the barriers to scale today.
Yeah, and apart from the EU's legislation, are there other similar regulatory efforts happening in the fashion industry?
Oh yes, there's a whole lot of legislation coming for the fashion industry today. In the EU alone, there are 16 different pieces of legislation. And in addition to the member states, which are coming up with their own legislation. So for example, France's Law AGEC has requirements around data transparency to consumers at the time of sale, product sustainability data. Europe is also doing its revision of textile labeling legislation. In the US, there's information about, or there's a push to move forward legislation about digital care labels, or even the New York Fashion Act, which will also require data be disclosed to certain parties. So I see this becoming global. It's just a matter of time. But this idea of getting data together and getting it ready to be prepared for different audiences is all over the place, and it's coming fast.
We have one question here that I'm very interested in as well. What is the difference between DPP and GS1 barcode?
So your barcode is like your physical barcode, and barcodes are actually normally at the SKU level too. And your barcode is just a physical thing, whereas your DPP is a data profile in the cloud that holds and stores all information about that product, right? So a barcode may say, like, tell a company. A barcode would say it speaks to an internal organization, right? So the company may have some set of information about that SKU. A DPP is at the item level, right? So it's this unique item, and it's, per the EU legislation, much more granular level of information about the sustainability of that product, not just, the core information for commerce. And then the DPP also has to enable, what's critical is the data exchange in the circular value chain of key information about that product. So for example, it will have to share its material content to the recycling partner. It will have to share information for resale enablement to the reseller, whereas the GS1 barcode doesn't actually enable the sharing of information. Now, GS1 standards are critical to the creation of a digital product passport in some ways as well. And when EON works with clients, we're always leveraging and using GS1 standards, whether it's for EPCIS and tracking of the product, or sort of the unique identifiers of that product. They're critical tools for enablement. But a DPP is more of a technology rather than kind of a physical barcode. Does that answer that question?
I think so. And there's a follow-up that's interesting as well. Is the future to add a heat seal label as a digital passport, because the sew-in labels can be removed by the customer at any stage?
Yeah, so your DPP labels, they're going to want to be embedded in the product. You're going to want to look at this product ID for the life cycle of the item. And so exactly what form is something that is taking place through the Surpass pilots of what the DPP data carrier requirements are. But common ones include NFC, which the user can now tap, QR code, which the user can scan, and RFID, which doesn't actually connect to a user's mobile phone, but it will enable automatic sorting in recycling facilities, right? So RFID requires an RFID reader, if you're familiar in the supply chain, same technology, but applying that post-sale to automate the sorting and separation. So what it will probably look like at a future state is a single product may have both a QR code and an NFC for the customer engagement, as well as an RFID. So that product is both able to speak to customers and share the critical DPP information to that customer. And that product is also able to share critical information and be automatically sorted by recyclers.
Wonderful. So my next question is for Natasha and June. We'll start with Natasha. What are your biggest learnings from your experience with DPPs so far?
Yeah. I'd say one of the things that we are seeing now across brands is there are many different policies, right? And they have all of their product data in different disparate systems. So because basically by creating the digital twin, brands are able to now start to deploy on multiple different policies at a single time, right? And so I think as an industry, brands have been used to thinking of product data very separate, or different policy initiatives or product initiatives very separate. And now with the product ID, once they have that digital twin and all that data in one place, we're able to run multiple policies or multiple capabilities from a single product. So for example, you create your digital twin, and now with EON, you could run the Loi AGEC, you can run your DPP gap analysis, you can run your digital care label, right? Because you have your data in one place, you can start to leverage all those pre-built policy compliance modules. Or you can then start to say, oh yes, we need this set of data for resale, or that set of data for recycle, or this set of data for customer engagement. So the thing that we've learned the most is the critical foundation is setting up that initial digital twin, and then you're able to seamlessly kind of and modularly build and extend all the capabilities.
Wonderful. June, what about you? What are your biggest learnings so far?
Well, for sure, digital passports has been a learning curve and learning journey. As I mentioned before, so much opportunity in driving circular business models, engaging with our customers in new ways. But, it is still for us an emerging technology. It's a nascent capability for us as a brand. It's a new consumer behavior. And, we've been on this really collaborative journey with EON as we pioneer these new possibilities together. From a brand perspective, we've had to stitch together and integrate data flows across multiple supply chain and product information systems, educate our consumers on, what is a digital passport, what is an NFC chip, why, what are the benefits and why should they be connecting with their products? And then, working with EON and building the ecosystem of partners that facilitates growth at scale. But change is coming, and we're really excited to tackle what we see as the big opportunities, as I mentioned before, in, driving data-driven transparency, circular product journeys, community engagement, and really continuing to build this new type of connected world.
Great. And Natasha, what about challenges? What are the things that keep you up at night right now?
Closely watching all the DPP updates and being part of that and informing that too. I think we sit very closely with all of those policy initiatives, and making sure that our brands are up to speed with everything that they need is what keeps us up and prepared. I think a lot of brands don't realize how quickly this is coming, and that there is foundational work to be done to build that initial implementation. Right? If the DPP requires linking the digital and the physical, then linking the digital and the physical is something every brand can start to do today. And they can start to capitalize on their products and the customer engagement and perhaps a resale use case, right? Then they will be able to easily augment when all the legislation requirements come out and just add more and more granular level to that DPP. So I think kind of working with brands to build their deployment strategy in a way that enables them to capture commercial value while also preparing for that legislation. And, I think the hardest thing about DPPs that we've realized is the cross-department collaboration with the brand, right? This is not a siloed, and June can attest to this, and, our team structure mirrors this. This is not a siloed initiative. This is going to impact your sustainability team, your traceability team, your circularity team, your e-commerce team, your marketing team, your data team, your product team, your trims team, your supply chain team, right? So every stakeholder is actually this is the Internet of Things. So this is every sort of component. So when we kick off with a brand, we're very focused in setting up a cross-department task force. Right. So all of those different stakeholders can be aware of both the opportunity for their division and also the impact on what's going to change for them in order to capitalize. And that is, organizations aren't normally set up for that. Mm-hmm. Organizations are normally set up in a silo, and those departments work very disparately. And I think that's what's been amazing with Coach, is having that 360 team and all those different disciplines together, because that way they're able to capitalize on every component. They're able to capitalize on the customer experience. They're able to capitalize on the resale. They're able to capitalize on the transparency. And if you don't build that collaboration, then you won't be able to capitalize on all the value either.
Yeah. So June, you're nodding a lot at what Natasha is saying. So what rings truest for you when it comes to challenges?
I'm reliving the work to do this. No, but I think Natasha raises a really good, great point. I spoke to some of the challenges. Challenges, opportunities, really two sides of the same coin. But in Coachtopia, it's a lab of innovation, not just in the what, like in the innovation we're pioneering, but also in the how, which is the ways of working. And a lot of big organizations, are often set up sort of in waterfall processes, like handoffs between functions. And Coachtopia, we're working in a really new way, which is a very agile and real-time collaborative way, which was so important in implementing digital IDs, just because it required so much collaboration across so many so many departments. But, I really believe that these new ways of working are critical to accelerating innovation across so many fronts, not just digital IDs. So it's a really important muscle to build in organizations. Yeah. I'd also add that for Coachtopia, our overall mission is to, move Coach towards a fully circular business model. So digital IDs are something we're pressure testing and innovating as part of a Coachtopia business model. But the ultimate intention is then to also, roll that out in the broader Coach brand.
Great. And Julie, what is EON doing to make compliance easier for brands?
Exactly. We have functionality to help make that compliance either. So some of that is pre-built templates to understand what is needed, at least what is expected at each point. Real-time alerts if there are data issues, data management tools to help transform the data that's inputted into specific required formats. So it's all about that capture, that management to make sure it's formatted in the right way and is going to be able to be accepted by other systems as well, and making sure that it's broadcast to the right parties. So we're really trying to help brands with each step of that and make sure that it can be kind of checked for compliance and that they're alerted if anything looks off at any point.
Great. So we'll take, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, one more thing. These pieces of legislation are getting updated all the time, right? We're always getting new drafts. There's new input. There's new proposals. So it's a way to just kind of keep track of everything and get alerted if those things are updated as well. So you can get a little bit of support there.
So one of the questions was like, what happens when we're talking about the products like move from country to country? So how does the DPP work in that case, in terms of how standards are formed in maybe different geographies, for example?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that makes DPP so interesting is you can actually communicate to your customer based on the geography that they're in, right? And drive products to the right circular infrastructure based on the geography that the user's in. What do I mean by that? Well, let's say you're a major global brand, like some of our clients, and you have a resale partner in the EU and a resale partner in the US, right? Today, when brands run resale programs, it's a little bit analog where they say, oh, we've partnered with this one reseller in one geography and everybody in the world is kind of expected to ship their products there. Now with DPP, when the customer scans the product, you can actually, the customer's location, and you can actually steward them back to the closest store, the best resale partner locally, the best recycle facility. So the product is able to sort of have an intelligent ecosystem based on its location. And that goes for kind of language content or any other sort of geographic specific capability that you want to offer the user. So I think that's starting to make circularity more intelligent. And build more adaptive and responsive. What the Internet of Things does is it enables things to be adaptive and responsive, right? This product can be intelligent based on its location, based on its time, based on its duration, based on its current market value, and really start to steward products in intelligent ways rather than just kind of by, dated rules.
Great. So we have a lot of questions from our audience, and I'm trying to chain some of them together so that it's more efficient that way. One of the questions is, who decides what data is captured, and who owns this data fundamentally?
That's a great question. I can take that. So basically, when you work with a technology company like a product cloud, right, or EON, like a CRM for your products, it is basically the same as like using a Salesforce, right? This is your product data. We are just servicing you and enabling you to unlock the capabilities of that data, right? So it's the brand owned data, right? When they create the digital ID. Now, what data is in the digital ID? One of the first things we do through, the product, the digital ID onboarding or POC or a gap analysis, and which is a foundation for any brand who's on a scaled roadmap, is a data gap analysis. And so basically we ask the questions of what use cases are you trying to drive, and therefore what data do you need? So let's say the client says, I want to drive customer engagement and I want to drive resale. Then those are the data points that you need initially in the digital ID. If you're trying to start with recycling and resale, then you need those data points. So your data strategy really depends on what capabilities you're trying to drive. But ultimately for DPP compliance, you will need a set of data. And if you're interested in sort of gap analysis tools around that, just scan the QR code at the end and we can give you kind of a policy overview and tool set around that.
Great. And here's another question. How do we hold the entire supply and value chain accountable for products that eventually transact outside a brand's first-party owned and operated ecosystem?
That is a big one.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, Julie.
Maybe, I don't know, Natasha or June, you want to take either of you?
I mean, I can share some perspective from a brand. I mean, it's, this is, at Coach, as we think about developing new circular business models, we have to also think very differently about how we partner and collaborate with all the partners in our ecosystem. It's a very different relationship, right? In more of a traditional model, suppliers are more vendors or service providers versus in a circular model. It's so important to have shared vision, values, thinking about shared goals. And so, it starts by choosing partners that, again, share your mission and goals, your commitment to being able to pioneer new ways of working. So, that's one. I think two, then also as a brand, we need to facilitate the capabilities with all of our partners to be able to track and implement the same types of data that can flow across the full supply chain, which, obviously is a huge challenge. And again, this is why I'm always saying circularity is a really, it's a journey. It's a long road. And, we're humbled to know that we're only at the very, very beginning of that journey, and it will involve the work, not just of Coach, but across a much broader global ecosystem. Digital passports are one step in that process and a really important step. But again, there's a lot that needs to happen, as we work together to really meaningfully move the industry forward.
Great. And this is another question, I think, for June. How do you collect information from customers, and will, customers be able to tell if a product's been repaired by Coach, for example?
Yes. I mean, for Coach, we're mostly a direct to consumer company. So it's mostly through our directly owned channels. What's nice about digital passports is even when we're selling in wholesalers or third-party partners, we can develop that direct connection to consumers. So, we gather data in, a number of ways at the point of sale, through clienteling, maintaining the relationship, through allowing consumers to connect to our products and begin a richer dialogue with us, through all of the services we have. We also have Coachtopia is created as a really collaborative global community. So there are so many ways to engage. I mean, I think the underlying, point is that, as we think about building this community, we're providing multiple ways to keep building and deepening the relationship and building the community around circularity. We will track every moment the product comes back to us or one of our partners. For example, when it's brought back for a product care, repair, when it's given a second life, when it's reused, upcrafted, remade, recycled, resold, etc. So we will be able to follow those. And we're now working to see, what the consumer values in terms of what we make visible to them.
And this is a follow-up question. Can this technology help prevent the sale of counterfeit luxury products?
Yeah. So basically, that's why when we talk about like a CRM for products, like when you look at your DPP or your digital ID deployment strategy, you want to be combining the business value with the sustainable compliance, right? You don't just want to be looking at this for sustainability and compliance, whether you are a large luxury brand or a mass market player, right? Because you really need to be able to capitalize on the digital ID functions 360. If you're luxury, authentication and digital certificate will be one of them. If you're mass market, big data and customer engagement, right? But these connected products are really, yes, they are absolutely critical for compliance, and you absolutely need to nail that. I mean, Julie and I were on a call the other day where we were learning that there might be a 12-cent tax, for products that aren't circular, right? And don't have this sort of embedded capabilities in them, right? So that means brands are, 2 years ago when we started working with some brands, it was like, okay, how do we prove the business value? And now it's like, okay, this is, your few cents for your ID is really going to be paying for itself 10 times over with inclusive of the tax. And then also when you layer in kind of those other business value of authentication, user engagement, etc. But it is complicated for a CFO to look at this and do the kind of analysis of the investment because it applies to cross department, right? It's not, oh, this is just a budget for marketing. Oh, this is just a budget for sustainability. You have to look at the financial investment across all of these different variables. And that is complicated and not where organizations are used to.
Yeah.
You also have to look at this as a financial investment in terms of, wow, I'm actually going to be able to recapture my product and sell it again, right? And I'm actually going to be able to increase my customer lifetime value because my customer is going to be reselling that item direct through me, right? So CFOs are also not used to, in the fashion industry, looking at revenue after initial sale. So there are a couple new ways that, you do have to be creative in terms of how you strategize on your deployment, but definitely that's a great question because you have to make sure you're combining the business value and the DPP compliance.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this question is either for Julie or Natasha, but how does EON differ from other companies offering DPP services?
I'd say maybe you schedule a demo or an outreach too in the chat, but I'd say EON is a holistic solution and a CRM for products. And we've built the infrastructure over 7 years in terms of enabling brands to basically create a comprehensive operating system behind each product. DPP, sustainability compliance, EPR legislation, et cetera, is one of them that is heavily embedded within it. And EON is a leader in that regard. But also we are, really a comprehensive solution for the other business capabilities. And the other thing I'd say that makes us quite unique is we actually have the largest end-to-end value chain. So the EON exchange is something, the value of a connected product relies on interoperability, right? 40 to 70% of the value actually relies on your connected product's ability to connect to other applications and use cases. And interoperability has been at the heart of EON since we created the company in terms of developing industry circular product data protocol, in terms of making the first end-to-end digital product passports, in terms of driving the first use cases around instant resale and the industry roadmap for digital ID and regeneration. So I'd say that that's been really unique about us, but it's really exciting to see a whole world of solution providers build their voice and identity around this compliance too.
And to build on that a little more, one of the requirements of the DPP legislation is that all information included on the DPP has to be based on open standards, developed with an interoperable format that can be machine readable, structured and searchable. And so these are kind of fundamentals that the EON platform has been built on. And similar to what Natasha has said, it's very comprehensive. I've seen a lot of other companies kind of focus on specific use cases and say, we can address this piece of it and this piece of it and this piece of it, and then kind of expand the transparency from that. I would say that EON goes a little bit of a different direction and frames it a different way, where it's focusing on that data exchange, that data management, and then it's able to open up so many more use cases and what happens to that data because of that.
Right. Wonderful. So this is an interesting one. What about lower value products? For example, $10 t-shirts. Will it be economical or meaningful to trace them at the unit level? Do you see them ID'd on the batch level itself? Is there a threshold for the DPP legislation in terms of the value of the product?
No, I would say this is in response to a lot of those lower value products. There is this is a way to kind of harness in some of the impact and the waste that's coming from that, and so it will be legislated for those items of all prices, so it will be required.
So no batch level. So we're going to see even individual t-shirts will have to comply.
I would say it's still to be determined whether it's batch or model or item level to be required. We have seen definite value in item level tagging and being able to track what happens. So yeah.
Oh, that ties in really nicely with the next one. Can recyclers use the DPPs on a large scale? Example, scanning a QR code each and every time at the time of recycling might be a bit of an issue in a large scale. Like you have to scan over it 10,000 times?
Yeah, that's an amazing question. Yes. And for recycling, your QR code is not your scalable solution. And that's why, again, like when you look at, you ask kind of what about EON, like when you look at enterprise deployments of this, you will need to basically link your RFID with your QR code, and those will need to point back to a single product ID, right? And so when your recycler is engaging, they will be using RFID to access. And I don't know if we can put it in chat, but we did about we built an industry action plan with groups like Walmart, Waste Management, TechState, and more, outlining the roadmap for how digital product passports are used in recycling. And I think that's accessible on our website at eon.xyz/recycling if you want to access that. It's about 80 pages, but it goes very detailed into the subject in more ways that I could answer right now, but that should be a helpful resource.
Yeah. And Julie, just expanding on what you said about this like global movement towards digitizing products, what is the outlook for U.S. regulation? What do you anticipate will happen?
I anticipate that this will happen globally and pretty fast. So in terms of digitization, we're already seeing, as we've been talking about, this in Europe, but I would say there are a lot of regulations that are kind of related to DPPs because it's all kind of related to data and transparency. But this is a way that data can be tied to a product digitally, and so that this verified information can be there to justify any claims. It can be there to supplement digital care labels, which might be a real thing in the US soon. It will be there to support even company claims, such as those for the New York Fashion Act or other legislation in Europe too. So I would say that this is going to spread quickly globally, and it's really being spearheaded in Europe. Does that answer your question?
I think so. Yeah. June, you might have answered some of these questions already, but how does Coach have any plans to leverage DPPs to gather customer feedback and capture data on the use phase, which can be utilized to inform and drive sustainable product development efforts?
Yes. I mean, we're looking at many ways to engage customers through the digital passport. So, absolutely, in terms of thinking about how they, gathering feedback on how they're using the product, et cetera. I mean, we have a lot of mechanisms to get feedback from consumers. So we're still working through, what we want to capture through digital product and what we want to capture through other means. I think the opportunity, though, is that it opens up a much richer dialogue with consumers through their use and care of their product.
Great. And I think this is a salient one. How can we keep personal data safe?
I can begin with that one. And then I also definitely encourage you to reach out to us on that one for a detailed, like more technical and architecture conversation. I think we at EON, we always have been focused on product data since the onset, right? What data actually defines this product? Where is this product moving? And everything that involves customer data is really opt-in, right? First of all, the customer opts to engage with the digital product passport. So they are scanning the product ID, right? And then if a customer would like to register, if they would like to resell, all those are capabilities that they're using through the product. And they can access all of the product information without actually identifying themselves. That's also something that the EU Commission, that the Surpass organization that EON is part of are, very dedicated to. But right now, everything is very focused on product data and information that identifies the product rather than any information that identifies the customer. There are, of course, the opt-in capabilities where a user can opt in. And that's why, too, we say it's a CRM for products, right? Because if you think of a CRM, that's your unique customer ID. EON is your unique product ID. And then when you start to link those together, you can start to actually connect customer and product and unlock a world of new commercial capabilities.
I would also add that even for customers who choose to connect to a product, there is no customer information that is housed in digital product. The digital passport, everything is still within, our CRM systems and governed by our data privacy, et cetera. laws. So just wanted to clarify, I know sometimes it's a misconception that consumer data is housed in that passport. It's truly just the product information and the way for customers to have visibility into that.
And I think, EON, you have already some like potential customers in the audience, because one question is, how can smaller brands get integrated with EON? Is there a wait list?
Yeah, we're really excited about small brands, and we are really building the muscle to work with small brands the more that we automate the processes for that. So absolutely, please reach out. And I think what we're planning to do is kind of a broader webinar and demo for a bunch of small brands, so we can, pull that together and provide smaller brands kind of resources to get going on this as well.
Wonderful. And another one, sounds like a lot of NFC chips and RFIDs will be needed to build out the system. Can they be separated from products and reused and reprogrammed easily?
Yeah, so RFIDs are kind of already attached to products. So that's what's kind of great, is this is a technology that most brands are already using in the supply chain. It's just a matter of putting it in the product. And yes, the idea is that RFID or that NFC does need to come out in the recycling. Now, again, I'll point you to eon.xyz/recycling for the full report on how brands should prepare and deal with that, and how the product and the data carrier should be integrated and designed. I would say that one of the main breakdowns today is that products aren't actually arriving at the recycling facilities or the resale facilities. So with the product ID, we can steward those to those locations. And then, yes, the ID is able to get removed at those locations.
And this is an interesting one, I think, maybe for June. Circularity means all outputs become inputs. How does Digital ID intervene to match production to wearer use to slow the flow of materials overall through the fashion system, I guess, to go to waste, to keep things from going to waste?
Sorry, can you repeat the second part of that question?
How does Digital ID intervene to match production to wearer use so that, I guess, less product or materials go to waste?
Yeah, I mean, in Coachtopia, we're working on a few things. Absolutely, outputs become inputs, and that's why we're making with waste and focused on repurposing materials that already exist and creating this circular ecosystem where all products come back and can be given a second life and ultimately become part of a closed loop system. So, I would say digital IDs don't drive that system, but they enable us to have the data to facilitate that system. So we know how our products are being used. We can track them as they come back into circular loops, and that, we can engage consumers through the process.
Yeah. One thing I might add on that too is basically now within EON, we can manage all the granular levels of the material information at item and batch. So you can actually look at this unique product and it has this cotton from this location, so you can get very granular with the components that actually make up the product. EON is not a material traceability solution. And I also think that's really important for brands to keep in mind, right? You'll need a digital ID solution, and then you'll have a material traceability solution that does upstream tracking of that. But what you need to make sure is that material traceability can go into your product ID solution, that your product ID solutions has the ability to manage that level of granularity of information, because ultimately the digital ID actually does end up, as June said, stewarding that information, right? Because we're enabling it to be shared through the recycler. So it's really great to see, how when brands invest in that upstream traceability of materials, they might not have had the ability to capitalize on that investment before, to either broadcast that information to the customer or connect it to the recycler. So now the digital ID starts to unlock the value of those investments that a brand has made in material traceability.
Wonderful. So we have time maybe for one more question. I'm going to go with this one that I write a lot about. How can DPP tech ensure that suppliers enter data honestly? Example, a factory that may have weaker labor in its production chain may actively hide the fact and enter false or incomplete information. While this should be supported by enforcement, how will that aspect of compliance be trained and financially supported?
Yeah. With the limited amount of time in 2 minutes, I definitely would encourage you to reach out for a demo on that. I would say that DPP has not exactly issued exactly how specific data points will be required to be validated, right? But I think that's going to be a journey that the industry is on together, but we can share more insights on specifically that question.
Well, thank you to all you lovely ladies. Definitely lots of useful information in shaping the future of commerce with digital product passports. So we'll summarize the main takeaways today. DPPs go beyond compliance, offering big opportunities for brands through traceability, resale, customer engagement, and more. The future of commerce, immersive, hyper-personalized, and integrated into our physical worlds. DPPs require entirely new tech infrastructure to enable brands to connect and capitalize on their products. And if we didn't answer your question, please do not hesitate to get in touch with EON. We're going to throw up a QR code to request a demo or sending them an email. Well, thank you so much. And I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your week. Bye.
Thank you, Jasmine. Thank you, June. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you.